just not willing to throw Morel away because when you do that, he is going to go. Someone will claim him. There's too much potential. There's too much underlying stuff that you would hope in your ballpark you can maybe fix. So he ain't going down to Durham. When you cut bait, you got to be 100% sure. And if you're 98% sure, that's not 100.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays. From game analysis to player interviews, we've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
It's your boy, Evan Closky.
Back again. We always appreciate it, bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
We're here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this is our 7th season covering the Rays daily.
So grab your favorite Rays gear and settle in as we discuss a myriad of topics with Evan. There is a lot to banter about between Taylor Walls and Chandler Simpson and the split against the Houston Astros. But Ulises, do we need to tell the audience something first?
Yes, we do, and that's that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. A lot of people are saying that maybe we got 50% of the value of what Christopher Morel should have been given the Rays in the last 93 games or so with the Rays uniform. Let's start right there. The Rays obviously demoted Chandler Simpson with Jake Mangum coming off the IL. We said this week we're so cool with Jake Mangum being back on the roster. The Chandler Simpson, though, seems like it should have been Morel. We hear Eric Neander say some things that make us think maybe the decision wasn't so easy of like, let's just bring down Chandler Simpson. It was more like, okay, we'll bring him down now, but Morel is on the focus and he has to start doing something or else we got to talk things about Chris.
Yeah, and I don't think Neander had to necessarily come out and say it like that. There are two things that are really important, which I try to stress to fans, is that it's not necessarily picking Chandler Simpson over Christopher Morel. The fact is, for right now, Chandler Simpson can go. He is the future for this team, right? And he was definitely brought up quicker than he ever was supposed to come up because the team had a million injuries at the outfield position. And when people complain, it's just service time manipulation. If they wanted to do service time manipulation, they would have brought up, I don't know, Tristan Peters from Durham. They would have brought up Stevenson, Jankowski would remain here. There are other ways to make sure that Chandler Simpson has that extra year of eligibility. So it's not service time manipulation. The truth is they need more time with Morel because they did invest heavily. And I understand out there fans just say it's a sunk cost, throw it away. It was a bad deal, whatever. And in a vacuum, that sounds great. But in reality, when you're the one doing deals and there are underlying reasons for why you like Morel, when you look at the bat speed, when you look at when this man makes contact, it typically goes a far ways. Also, he's been hurt by the ballpark he's played in. Not that all of a sudden he can be the world's greatest player by playing in a different ballpark. But, the Rays also need some of those answers as well. Are they going back to Tropicana Field next year? Is that going to be on schedule? If they're not, then Morel is totally not a fit anymore because the whole point was him in Tropicana Field. So there are a whole host of things. And then at some point, yes, what Neander said, if they're still in contention, if there's a team fighting for a playoff spot, they can't just burn this spot on a hopefully maybe it's got to happen sort of deal. At some point, they will cut bait. But there is a reasonable explanation that, A, Chandler would not possibly play every day at the major league level that you bring Mangum up. Mangum is 29 years old. You got to figure out what he is. And he's a very redundant skill set to Chandler. I love both of them. I'm okay with that redundancy. There's some other redundancy I'm not. But, and the fact that his fielding is just really far off. He's playing in center field, mostly in Durham. He'll get some work on the outside corners, but he is not a major league ready center fielder, that's for sure. And left field was adequate. Slightly below average, but certainly if you wanted to stick him in the corners, that's fine. Just typically with corner outfielders, you do want to have power, just like third base, first base. Those positions you want to sacrifice a little defense so that you're getting more offensive production. So Chandler as a left fielder is not the same as Chandler as a center fielder. So, and that's not to say I'm down on Chandler. Look at Jarren Duran, his first year in Boston. Just, man, did he struggle out there in the outfield, and surely he picked it up. So he needs more reps out there. That's, he's progressed through the system very fast because he's awesome. And he will be back with the club at some point. Just right now, when they had to make the move at the end of May, early June, they're just not willing to throw Morel away because when you do that, he is going to go. Someone will claim him. He is going to be claimed. There's too much potential. There's too much underlying stuff that you would hope in your ballpark you can maybe fix. So that's, he ain't going down to Durham. He's going to get picked up. So when you cut bait, you got to be 100% sure. And if you're 98% sure, that's not 100. And that's real life versus what we get to do over here, which is play fantasy land a little bit without any repercussions for our, opinions and whatnot.
Just mean YouTube comments and Instagram and Twitter messages. Just
we all, everyone wants. Look, I'm included too. I have an opinion. I'm not banging on anybody who has these opinions. Who want Chandler Simpson out there? Who wants to cut Morel? I get it. 1,000%. These are not it's not like an invalid opinion. I'm just telling you that when you make a deal like that and you go to your bosses and you say, hey, I believe in this, I believe in that, and the reasons that you made the trade in the first place, they don't just all of a sudden evaporate after 93 games. There's still a belief there with the stuff, and there is a reason why you traded him, and there's just more fact-finding that has to happen. Agree or disagree, that's just the reality of it. So, and it's easy for us to say cut bait. It's just in the real world where you got to make those decisions and succumb to the fact that maybe this was a huge L on your resume. You want to give it every possible chance to succeed.
Well, we have much more to discuss with Evan, but first we have to tell the audience something very important. That is next on the Locked On Rays podcast, your team every day.
Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It takes less than 5 minutes to get started, and it's a complete look at your financial well-being. It manages your money. You can start building wealth. It's fantastic. It gives you everything. It's not just a budgeting app. And today, you can get started and take control of your finances with Monarch Money using code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's right. Using code LOCKEDONMLB gets you 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Again, monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
All right, Evan, before we move on to the Taylor Walls explosion, and not in a good way where he's hitting dingers or something, he's just getting mad at umpires. I want to ask this on Chris Morel. Post-trade deadline, will he or will he not be in a Rays uniform?
At this point, I would guess probably not in a Rays uniform, but the team is gonna determine how much patience they have, because if they are pushing for a playoff spot, I think they might bring up, Chandler and say, it is what it is. But we'll see. Circle back to me. But for now, I will say maybe not.
I like the way that you phrase that. So maybe I want to dig a little bit deeper here. So in the context of the team doing well or not, that's actually more of a factor in whether he stays or not. What I mean by that is if he's doing well, but the team is not, what happens with him? Is it relative, his production, to whatever is happening with the team? Is that going to be the same scenario at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, with him, look, there is a certain point where you got to figure out what lane you want to go in with this season, right? Entering the year was a fact-finding mission. I've always said that. You got to know who your guys are for next season, because you're getting closer and closer to probably being a threat again for a World Series title.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if that's going to happen next season, but 27, 28 has always kind of been my target range. But let's say this team goes on a 10-game winning streak. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying 10-game winning streak, playoff probabilities now are 85%, 90%. Well, considering once you have a ticket to the dance, you never know what's going to happen. You can't waste a spot. So if he really is not performing and you can do better with that spot, somebody who fits the equation more, that could be also Richie Palacios returning. It doesn't have to necessarily be Chandler. So there are some different options here. You might say, okay, enough is enough. It didn't work out, so on and so forth. But let's say the team goes on a 10-game losing streak before the trade deadline. I can deal with Morel a little bit longer, right? I need to figure out if he's a thing. Maybe I start giving him more starts instead of this part-time role. Maybe I say, screw it. August, September, he's going to play every day. And we are going to find out if this is a piece or not. So that's where I think a little bit you gotta read the room a bit. And, if you're a fan, you always want to push for winning. But when you're an executive like Neander, who is so fluid with his ability to buy and sell, buy or sell, he can do both. Then you gotta really be objective and emotionless about the product. And in doing so, you got to then ask yourself, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs most likely. And so what is best for 2026, 2027? And that's when you get into decisions of, is Morel that guy or not? And maybe press the issue a bit more.
All right. Ulises, your favorite player of all time, Taylor Walls, made the headlines for not so good reasons. Tapping his helmet to the dislike of the home plate umpire during Sunday's game. He was ultimately ejected and erupted at the umpire. Evan, I'm sure you saw the course of the events and the transpiration of those events. What did you make of the whole shindig there between Taylor Walls, umpire Taylor Walls, ejection, Rodney Linares, Kevin Cash, the whole deal?
It was a world-class crash out, so we got to give him credit there. Look, I get the frustrations. First off, it was a horrific strike, but he didn't freak out. Okay, he was upset. Evidently, the bench was chirping as well. He was upset. He said a couple of words. He absolutely tapped his helmet. I don't think that was maybe he says that he subconsciously did it. Conscious, subconscious, unconscious, whatever it might be. You did it in a spot where it made a lot of sense to give the old taparoo.
My opinion on this is he adjusted his helmet, then did the tap, 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 and looked at the umpire, and it seemed like he was angling at the and goading him a little bit.
The fact is, to me, in my opinion, I think you got to be a little bit more thick-skinned if you're an umpire.
100%.
I understand it's borderline showing up the umpire. It is there. I mean, when you do the taparoo, that is showing up an umpire. But having said that, he was not using language, and in the ninth inning, 1 out. In a call where it is borderline, you absolutely know that was a borderline pitch. That was not something off the edge that you feel like it was absolutely borderline.
1-run game too.
Let it go, and know your spot. Know where we are in that game. If that is the fourth inning, whatever, I still don't agree with it, but at least I understand. Not in the ninth inning with 1 out on a pitch that you objectively screwed up in the end. So you got to be better than that if you're an umpire. Just completely disagreed with tossing him. I thought that was weak, super weak. Just and for a guy who had honestly a really bad game all day. So you have nothing to. You got to rise above it. These guys are world-class athletes. You missed a call. He didn't say a bunch of nasty words to you. He was upset, right. Gave the old taparoo, deal with it, move on. He didn't make a scene. He stepped out, he stepped back in, away we would have went. So we would have never even thought about it if you didn't throw him out.
Yeah, it was quite the scenario indeed. All right, we have more to discuss as we wrap up this episode with Evan Closky. But first, we have to tell the audience something important that is next on the Locked On Rays podcast. Your team every day.
Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. They've got an easy-to-use website packed with helpful resources and latest product information to help you get the job done right. Plus, they've got an inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, so you'll get exactly what you need and delivered fast from coast to coast. You can join their free Trade Master program, which offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order by going to supplyhouse.com/TM, and you can start ordering everything, plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Again, you can do all of that at supplyhouse.com.
All right, Evan. While fans weren't too happy in the internet sphere about Chandler Simpson being demoted to keep Chris Morel on the roster, I think, and maybe this didn't get as much play as maybe it should have, but the Rays did make a maneuver at the catching position, offloading Ben Rortvedt and making a deal to get Matt Thaiss in a Rays uniform. And now Matt Thaiss is the 53rd catcher in Rays franchise history of 28 years. And just want to get your take on the new tandem, the new combo of Danny Jansen and Matt Thaiss. Is that enough to keep the Rays above water and perhaps propel them into a playoff spot? Because based on what Thaiss has done this season and bits and pieces of previous years, he does have some redeeming qualities, seemingly.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, the catcher position is just really hard to fill successfully. I think Mark Topkin wrote that, it's kind of like the unicorn. I don't know if he said that or Neander said it, but it's really hard to find the Cal Raleighs of the world, right? So Matt Thaiss was a really savvy move to snag as your backup catcher. He's not going to get you many hits, but he walks at an unreal clip. Like, this guy must have the best vision in the world sort of clip, because his OPS is, I haven't checked it recently, but what is it, like 385? Something like that for a guy with a 200 batting average. I mean, it's all walks. The guy's walking like a million
times.
Like
Yasmani Grandal, where he'd have a 180 batting average, or maybe I've got the Grandal batting average versus slugging percentage mixed up with the on-base percentage. But it's one of those. Wait, what?
It's silly. It's a 22 walk rate, percent walk rate. It's
that's nuts.
It's a 206 average with like a 385 on base. Like, it's pretty nutty.
Yeah. So again, he's nothing flashy, but the fact is, from the backup catcher position, you just want to try to keep the line moving sometimes, right? I don't necessarily need you to go out there and hit 15 dingers. It's it's unrealistic. Just sometimes can you not be an auto out, right? That's what you need. And not to mention with him, he's going to work counts. So that's another important thing. Something that Danny Jansen does really well. He works counts. So even when you're making out, you're forcing the pitcher to throw, in a total, let's just say like 15 pitches to you individually. Like, that has value as well to get you out of the game. So, wear you down in an inning. I still believe Danny Jansen, look, I don't know how much he's going to be able to make up for the disastrous start of the season he had, but ultimately I still think Danny Jansen is going to be a nice piece, a good enough piece here to do what he's got to do, leading the way. And then Thaiss will fill in here or there. Is it the long-term answer? No, it is not. And, you're still crossing fingers that Dominic Keegan is maybe that guy. They finally drafted someone high up last year at the catcher position, but, he's very young and in Charleston, so you don't know. There's a bizarro world where I would love to call up the Seattle Mariners and say, hey, Trey Morgan for Harry Ford.
Do it.
Let's go top 100 prospect for top 100 prospect. You guys need a first baseman. Here's a Gold Glove caliber first baseman who's going to make a bunch of contact, and we'll take your catcher, who is going to be blocked by Cal Raleigh, and you are going to be forced to put him at first or in the outfield, which is going to have diminishing returns on your fielding prowess. So let's just help you help me.
Yeah. And just for good measure, we'll throw in Chris Morel.
I don't even think you got to do that, but whatever. The Chris Morel, surprisingly enough, still has a little bit of value. I still think you can probably get some like lower level guy that your scouting department's in love with for a Christopher Morel as a dart throw. And if you think that's ridiculous, go look up the trade for Junior Caminero, right? Those things happen, and they happen at a minute level as well, not even at a Christopher Morel type level. So, and we can even go back to the Christopher Sanchez, Curtis Mead deal, which, in hindsight, the Phillies have won, but still it was pretty remarkable that both of them were kind of highly touted people. So that stuff kind of happens. Regardless, I don't think it's going to make or break. I don't think we're going to get to the end of the season and say, man, if only this team had a better backup catcher. Like, I think in the end, Thaiss and Rortvedt was a problem. They fixed it.
Right.
Maybe took a little bit longer than I think they should have, but they fixed it. And you also got to get someone who plays ball with you as well. You can't just make a move. You need something in return, and you can't sacrifice the comfort level of your pitching staff and defense to make those moves happen. So when he could, he got it done. And I'm cool with this pairing, and it kind of is what it is. And I think defensively they do enough.
We can live with it.
Ultimately, Ben Rortvedt stayed in the organization too. So if it's for the pitchers, hey, if something happens to that tandem, you always have somebody that.
Yeah, so that's good. I mean, he's in the system. I'm sure that they would let him go wherever if another team wanted him. Same kind of deal with Travis Jankowski. I'm sure they'll say, hey, look, you can play over there. Go. We're not going to hold you back.
By the way, Danny Jansen, his last 15 games, has a 244 average, 346 on base, and 489 slug. Me likey from that perspective of Danny Jansen. Evan, you are a mensch. You are an award-winning journalist. Channel 10, WTSP, Tampa Bay. How can people find your amazing, wonderful, stupendous work?
Yeah, hit me up at Closky, WTSP. Always love having some Rays back and forth there. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to agree with your opinions. Sorry ahead of time, but if you ask a question, I'll answer it. You might not like that answer. Too bad. But then you can also find me at 10 Tampa Bay Plus. We have our new show, the Ultimate Florida Sports Show. Talk all things Florida sports with my buddies up there in Jacksonville. So that's a fun project that we're working on, only on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. And then you can also check me out 6 and 11 o'clock on 10 Tampa Bay if you're in the area. And you can also find that on 10 Tampa Bay Plus as well.
Awesome. All right. On that note, thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. You can get local analysis on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on the YouTubes or wherever you listen to those podcasts.